Welcome to the podcast, where today we're talking about Pokémon Works. Welcome to the deep end, where we discuss all things Pokemon, whether they're news-related, game-related, or speculation. Today we're going to be hitting on the news that the Pokemon Company and ILCA have formed Pokémon Works. And at the time of recording, we don't have a whole lot of information, so this is going to be a primarily speculative type of video, as well as we're going to actually dive into a little bit of some of ILCA's other works, because I know they've been getting a lot of heat over BDSP, and so we want to make sure that everyone's aware of other things that they have done and not just base ILCA's reputation on one bad release. On March 11th, Joe Merrick, also known as Cerebi, tweeted out that the Pokemon Company in Japan have set up a new subsidiary called Pokémon Works. The trademark got pushed and the company was registered a week ago. No idea what the company is for at this time. We'll let you all know. This was on March 11th of 2024. Now, according to the paperwork, it was registered on March 4th of 2024. At this time, we don't really know too much more from that, other than the fact that ILCA has been responsible behind the development of Pokemon Home as well as Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now, this sparked a lot of controversy simply because a lot of people have come to not really care for the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl remakes and have honestly criticized ILCA to quite a bit of an extent. And so I think the first thing we should address is what exactly ILCA has done in the past to give more context to their portfolio, so that at the very least we understand why they have decided to team up with Pokemon to build this new company.
So that's the thing, is ILCA have worked on some pretty high performing games, and games that look pretty decent with it. As a support studio of the main developer, I can't really speak for, but I mean, I'm just looking at a list, Chan, like just a few of them. I mean, One Piece Odyssey, fantastic looking game. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. Interestingly enough, on here it also lists them as being credited for working on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Then you've obviously got the BDSP games, Voice of Cards, Forsaken Maiden, Voice of Cards, Isle of Dragon, and what's quite surprising to me is Nier Reincarnation, Nier Replicant, and Nier Automata. And obviously Nier Automata, the Game of the Year edition, and Naruto Shippuden, Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. So I mean, those aren't small games by any stretch of the imagination, and I really enjoyed BDSP, and I don't think they should get as much hate for it as they did, because there was probably an art direction that the Pokemon Company wanted to go in, and that being the chibis and all of that. But I mean, when you're not in the open world, when you're in battles, I mean, the style itself looks very reminiscent of something like the Let's Go game. People enjoyed those, and it's not like the style was bad by any means.
Some of the other games that I'm looking at as I'm thumbing through their list of achievements, they have a Godzilla game, which traditionally those tend to be a bit campy, but the fact that, you know, they've gotten a couple, as well as Gundam Front Tokyo, and there was one that actually was surprising. They're listing Dragon Quest XI, Search of a Bygone Time, as part of their list of accomplishments of games that they've worked on. And so I do understand that a lot of people have this criticism over BDSP, but when you look at their book of work as a whole, it makes me wonder how much of that was actually on ILCA versus how much of that was on the Pokemon Company trying to maintain a certain level of control over the IP, because we all know that there's no way that Game Freak would allow people to muck with their IP too much, especially when they feel that we should be heading on this left direction, even if the studio working on it wants to move right. It was an opportunity for ILCA to really try and work with the Pokemon Company, get in good with them, and so they did what was asked, even though the games themselves were pretty much poorly received, to be honest. But when you've got people who saying they've got a hand in Bravely Default, I mean, that game's getting a sequel for a reason, and so makes me wonder, like, you know, exactly how much control did the Pokemon Company force onto ILCA to make the game the way they did?
Bravely Default game's wonderful. I still need to finish number 2, Second Layer. I don't remember what it is called, but I gotta finish those other 2 games for it. But ILCA itself is, I don't think they took charge in like the whole BDSP thing. So it kind of sucks like to hear like they're getting like the bad end of the stick, right? It's because like, especially after you look at the list of games that they've previously worked on. I think Chase, earlier before the recording, you mentioned they also worked on Code Vein. And that was a wonderful anime style Souls game, in my opinion. Probably the only one Souls game I've actually played besides Elden Ring. That's the other thing too. If you take a look at what Draco mentioned earlier about like how they established Pokémon Works, there's 3 names that pop up, at least. So this information I'm getting it from Tyranitar 2, because he did take a look at the people that are on the list. There's 5 directors. 2 of them, I think they're new, they're brand new, or they're not really in the limelight or anything. But there's 3 names of note. You have Tayuka Iwasaki, who is a core member of ILCA, and he's one of the directors for this new Pokémon Works. Then you have Satoshi Takamori, who is also a board member in ILCA as well. So that kind of raises the question, why are they making, like, if they did such a bad job, why are they making them directors now of like Pokemon Works, right? The third name is Takanori Soa. This person is actually one of the Scarlet and Violet producers. Out of the 5, these 3 are mentioned as directors under that contract or whatever listing that was posted, or not posted, or leaked. I don't know, leaked or posted, I'm not entirely sure. So it does make you wonder, like, maybe since, you know, we got like 2 ILCA members that are like coming in on our list of directors, maybe we'll see a little bit more of their work ethics or visuals into whatever Pokemon Works is supposed to be doing. Hopefully it's some side games, or maybe they're working on like remake games. This is all hoping, in my opinion, and like they just come out with some kind of banger.
My thing is, Pokémon Works is quite a strange thing because it's specifically listed as a subsidiary. So could this potentially be maybe mobile game development sector, and that's like exclusively what they handle? Or could this just be their idea tank where they cook up the ideas and they handle marketing and all of those things?
I should like those. The games that they work on, that Guren mentioned, like Code Vein. What was some of the other one? It was Bravely Default or something like that.
Bravely Default was one of them, yeah.
Yeah, I played those. Super good game. I actually like the work, and I don't like how they're getting a hate just because it was like a chibi style for BDSP, which I didn't mind. And I enjoy playing this game, so I don't think it deserves the hate. To sure.
Apparently, they've also been handed in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis.
Oh, wow.
Here's the thing, right?
I don't know.
So if we're talking just BDSP, for example, I mean, BDSP, I'm just looking at Video Game Sales Wiki, but whenever this was last updated, as of that, I can't really find where it is, but BDSP sold better than Pokemon Legends Arceus, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, and also, which is interesting because it almost doubled the sales of Pokemon Platinum, and then did better than Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, better than Pokemon Emerald, better than Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and then better than Crystal, and almost as well as Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee.
I think the reason why I did better because it's on the Switch, and back then I thought there's not many people that had a 3DS or like 2DS and DS to play like the old Pokemon games.
If you look at the game sales, for example, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, cumulatively sold 16,220,000 copies. That was on the Game Boy. Black and White sold 24 million. It's quite substantial. I mean, coming 10,000 copies short of matching with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee if we want to talk about Switch. I mean, that's no small feat because Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee were the first Pokemon games on the Switch. And from my understanding, quite a lot of the fan base enjoyed those.
Now, I will have to point something out. The reason why BDSP sold better than Pokemon Legends Arceus, partially, in my opinion, this is an opinion, has to do with the fact that not a month after they released Legends Arceus, they announced Generation 9, and I think that announcement cut the momentum for that game. Had the announcement come down a little further down the line, say June, the sales would have kept going. But I think the moment people realized that the new gen was coming later that year, they stopped spending money to buy that game so that they can have the money to buy the new generation. Because the difference between was somewhere around 60,000 units between BDSP and Pokemon Legends Arceus?
But 10,000.
Yeah, that's not.
Oh, no,
that's
wait,
not
sorry. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is 10,000. Sorry, I made a mistake. It was 60,000.
Yeah, that's not a large number when you think of the volume of movement of units. And so I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that game. It would have done so much better had they not done it. But that said, ILCA did put out a game that people did pick up, and love it or hate it, it was still relative. I mean, anybody picking up, I think for the most part, most of the people who were picking up the game for the first time, I think the overall review was still positive because they've never played the original ones. But someone like me who's played the original ones had no reason to pick up BDSP, so I skipped it. Or someone who's picking it back up felt it was too close to the original to really warrant it, had a somewhat negative opinion. But again, this is just my observation, not fact.
Also, that's the thing that I find that's sort of rife within the Pokemon community, is people overhype themselves up. So from the get-go, they were very transparent that, look, listen, BDSP is going to be a faithful remake. And I think, you know, they did achieve that, and people were going in thinking, oh, this is going to be, you know, the best thing since sliced bread. We're going back to Sinnoh and all of that. And I mean, I do understand the style isn't for everyone, but the level of hate is unwarranted because, you know what, ILCA did a good job. I mean, you look at, for example, another studio that's developed a game for Pokemon being Niantic. I'm sorry, but Pokemon Go, I think, is absolutely atrocious. But it is the most downloaded mobile game. It's got over, I think it's 1 billion downloads or something. So that's sort of my frame of reference, because I don't think Niantic is a great studio by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, what, they made Ingress, I think they're making the Pikmin VR, if that's come out yet, I have no idea. So, I mean, they did get a little bit of hate, but not too much. But I mean, people are still playing BDSP, whereas you could make the contrast that Pokemon Go is pretty much dead in the water, which, you know, naturally is the cycle of mobile games, because people play it when they're hyped, they're excited, you know what. But I think COVID kind of slashed their momentum, and people just gradually started slowing down and, you know, stopping the game and not actually picking it back up. But we know the Pokemon company has had shortcomings, whether they be big shortcomings or small shortcomings. I mean, there was that what would you call it? It was a Pokemon app designed for children, and it had something to do with brushing their teeth. I think it's called Pokemon Smile or something. I think that absolutely bombed. Pokemon Sleep, I mean, it's a decent sleep tracker, but I don't really know anyone that's still keeping up with it.
My wife.
Your wife is an absolute trooper.
Yeah, she is, actually. But something I wanted to bring up was looking through some pages. Apparently, this is not the first time that ILCA has joined forces with a development company. They actually have another company called Bandai Namco Aces, which, hey look, it's Bandai Namco, the guys who make Gundam, and the guys who also did new Pokemon Snap. So ILCA has partnered with Bandai Namco in the same way that Nintendo has partnered with ILCA by creating a new company. And this company is called Bandai Namco Aces, and this was formed 2 years ago, 2022. As a matter of fact, it's almost 2 years to the day. But as of right now, the only thing that they're working on is Ace Combat. And that's the only thing that we have as far as information goes. But it makes me wonder now if, in partnering with ILCA and having Bandai Namco, of all companies, touch Pokemon IP, if there isn't something working in the background where we're going to start seeing a new level or new direction for the Pokemon company as a whole over this. Because Bandai Namco is the only other company that I can think of, off the top of my head, that has touched the Pokemon IP for the Switch. But I could be wrong.
In terms of Pokemon, right? Like, I think that's true as well, because I also cannot think of any other, like, companies that have done something like that. But I think another way you could look at it too is like, okay, so this is speculation, of course. Like maybe, I mean, I don't know, because you said there's no other information on like what Bandai Aces or Bandai Namco Aces have been, you know, working on except for the Ace Combat series. So like maybe, I mean, unless they wouldn't say it, but maybe they pan out well or didn't work out well, maybe, and then maybe that group came into whatever is now Pokemon Works. I don't know that, or maybe ILCA's starting to dip their toes in almost everybody's pools. You know, like they're gonna slowly take over everything.
Combat Aces 5 Pokemon, and all of a sudden you're on the back end of a Mega Latios.
Right. but I think that's the thing too, right? Like, because they have like a small group with Bandai Namco, and then now they're about to have, or like ILCA's gonna have like a little bit of leeway or something with this Pokemon Works thing now too. It just kind of goes to show that like they're, you know, I think that proves more to the point that they're not like a bad company like what everybody said. They're working with big IP names, right? Or big brand names. So
being realistic about it, Pokemon Home came out, both the Switch and for mobile. So, I mean, ILCA was already on the Switch before Bandai was. Oh, well, in terms of Pokemon games. Is ILCA the greatest game development company? No, I think they still have room to improve. But, I mean, their repertoire speaks for itself. I mean, again, whether it's support studios or maybe something a bit higher, I don't know. But they've worked on some heavy hitters, and there's been very little complaints about those. So, I think it's just about giving them a chance. Hopefully, they get more freedom if they are put on like another remake or BDSP type thing, because I think if they were given the freedom, I think we would be having a completely different conversation.
All right, so with that, moving on, you know, Pokemon Works, this IP, this new company, this brings so much potential and so much speculation, because at this point in time, we don't know anything of what they're working on or what they're going to work. But we're now in total speculation. We are now total deep end here. But if that's the case, where Pokemon is giving ILCA resources to build games, and ILCA has been known to build games like Nier Automata and One Piece Odyssey, what if they're actually working on a new generation, or at the very least, building the framework where Game Freak can concentrate on building the Pokemon and building, you know, getting the builds, the stats, the moves, all of that intricate stuff that needs to be worked on, while this new company of Pokemon Works jumps in and starts creating the world around it, you know, how things are going to get interacted. If both teams are working in tandem, we could be seeing the birth of probably some really amazing games in the future. Now, mind you, I just rounded the sun for the 45th time in my life, and so I've seen the progression of video games go from Atari-type graphics of Galaga to what we're seeing now with like One Piece Odyssey and these episodic things like Final Fantasy VII. And when you look at it from my perspective, it's wild how much we have grown as far as an entertainment for video games. But with that said, if Pokemon Works ends up being basically the workhorse for setting up world designs, while Game Freak focuses more on the Pokemon themselves, my thought is this could be a really good thing, because it would be a win-win for everybody. ILCA starts establishing itself as a much better player in the gaming world, while Game Freak can finally up their game and actually compete in the market with their Pokemon, with Pokemon, by which I mean graphically speaking, where gameplay, graphics, story, just something a lot more hard-hitting and solid than what we've been seeing in the past. Because a lot of it, if you think about it, it's a lot of regurgitation. And for as much as I love Scarlet and Violet, there were times where it was just so much empty.
Yeah, so I wanted to add to that too. Like, I think I agree with you on that point too. Like, while I have not revolved around the sun as much as you have, maybe about 10 years less or so, a little bit over 10 years less or so, it is true. Like, if you tell me to try and go back to like playing like a very old-fashioned game, a classic game, I'll play it for a little bit for some nostalgia, but then I feel like I wouldn't be able to play it fully, depending on the game, of course, because like everything that's been coming out recently has been like really great, right? Like right now I am on a fix for Unicorn Overlord, and that was supposed to be my Fire Emblem fix, because I have not been playing Fire Emblem as much as I should be, as it being one of my favorite franchises. But yeah, but besides that, this whole ILCA thing, like you're talking about, like if it does, they're like oil, right? You know, the Pokemon companies haven't been like this little Pokemon Works project thing. So like they're like you said, they're giving them the resources to do all these possibly like greater things. And then ILCA's like taking these resources to learn and, you know, grow even more. We can expect like a very awesome game. Like a speculation I just thought of while you're talking about this stuff was, what did we have in Scarlet and Violet in the Indigo Disc DLC? We got the Synchro Machine. We got the Pokemon Synchro Machine. That allowed you to run around or fly around with your Pokemon while attacking random Pokemon in the wild, right? So like if they took that concept and then you think about how ILCA has worked on something like Nier Automata, where it's literally like this heavy action-packed hack and slash kind of like game with like some other elements to it. It's like, what's there from stopping it from creating some kind of Pokemon game where it's kind of similar? Like you're playing as the Pokemon, you're dishing out all these cool, awesome combo moves to like progress through some kind of like epic storyline. That would be awesome. Like, imagine, let's say it's a Gen 5 thing. It's the backstory of the whole like original dragon, the battle between the two princes. You are playing as like a Zekrom or a Reshiram. You're just plowing through hordes of enemies or something, and then like boom, we get this epic story of like how the origin dragon was at first, and then how it split up, and then who won the actual war between the two princes, kind of thing. You know, like I think that'd be pretty sick.
What about this? And I know we're going to probably see a lot of people commenting that I'm wrong, but what if the backlash that they got off of BDSP kind of hit a little close to home for Pokemon Company, and seeing how well ILCA did on these other games and seeing the response of BDSP, that how mixed it's been? What if Pokemon Works is the attempt of the Pokemon Company to kind of loosen the reins a little bit and say, all right, fine, we will let you make a game your way. However, we get final approval on the finished product. It has to meet a certain standard that is become our branding. But you build it, you make it, you set the story, you do what you guys do, like you did with One Piece Odyssey, but now you've made the IP into a Pokemon game. Let's see how that works. Let's see if we can come up with something from that point of view, that perspective. I mean, can you imagine playing a game that's similar to that story type epic? What is it, like Final Fantasy VII, the remakes, or One Piece Odyssey, where you're more story driven than you are grind given, you know? Could you just kind of imagine a Pokemon game like that?
Right now, with how the Pokemon Company's been doing it, I mean, the closest we've got are to like, what, Legends Arceus, right? But even then, you can't say it was epic. So like, if it's going to happen with this Pokemon Works company, I'm kind of down for it. Like, give me this epic story. I think the fan base itself has been waiting for some kind of epic story from like coming from the Pokemon Company in some form or way, right? So like, I think I would welcome it. I would definitely welcome it. I would hope to see it sometime in the near future. And then I think it too, though, it does feel kind of like the way I'm also interpreting what you said. Like, I kind of feel like, okay, so in a sense, like Pokemon Works kind of sounds like a scapegoat, right? For some stuff. Like, let's say they have them do like all their new, fresh ideas kind of thing, or have them take the role kind of thing. And then if it flops, it's like, oh, that's just Pokemon Works. That we let them do what they want. So, you know, if it's not great, it's not great. I don't know if we can still keep the whole Works thing, you know, granted, like it like really tanks. You know, and then if it does something good, they're like, yeah, attaboy Pokemon Works. I knew I had it in you. You guys got this, you know, kind of thing. Like, and then of course, you know, like I said, they're kind of like a foil, right? So they'll just be popping ideas off of each other, and then boom, sooner or later, maybe non-Pokemon Works and actual Pokemon Company will actually bring out some kind of banger for like their main generation, maybe like Gen 11 or something else, or maybe Gen 10 if it's even for it to happen that soon.
I think what needs to also be brought up about the fact that, you know, Game Freak tried to branch out into another IP. I mean, they've done some games in the past, and they were good games. However, once Pokemon came into existence and it became their main source, they tried to branch out a couple of times, and not much success, to be honest. Like, nobody really talks about Little Town Hero. I'm pretty sure people forgot that Little Town Hero exists, but it's a Game Freak game.
Yeah, I saw a gameplay too. I was not interested as soon as I saw it. I'm sorry, it did not seem interesting to me.
Yeah, so it feels kind of like Game Freak, and you know, with all respects, but it feels like Game Freak has basically been in a rut. They only made a certain type of game. Their game has a very specific flavor to it, and then you look at these grandiose, episodic type feeling games, and you look at Pokemon, and it's like, well, what's the difference between A and B? You try to have a narrative with Pokemon, but the focus is usually the Pokemon and battling, and that's about as far as it goes. You don't, like you said, PLA was definitely a step in that direction of not being just a Pokemon game, but being something more, a true RPG in a sense, but didn't quite manage to break out of that mold. It still had too many elements of what Pokemon has been over the last 30 years. We're coming on the 30th anniversary of the franchise. What better way to break out than having a company crank out a massive game that is completely different from anything we have known from Pokemon, but under the flag name of Pokemon Works, and it being a different type of game altogether, something similar to what maybe some people have been hoping for, a narrative-driven RPG, a true JRPG.
That would be wonderful, I think. But I don't know how they're going to test the waters, since like it's like what you said, right? They only just recently established the Pokemon Works, and like there are no news of any kind of projects. Like our only Pokemon project coming up right now is the Legend ZA. I guess at that point, I guess only time will tell, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one big thing that ILCA has going for it is the fact that they do have models of all the Pokemon, all of them. They're the ones that do home, which means at a base level, there's a chunk of work that's already been done. They just have to add the animations to those models if they haven't already. And as far as world building, I mean, look, you can cheat. There are ways to cheat world building. Is it good? No, because taking shortcuts usually ends up meaning you have to work twice as hard. But, I mean, they've got the One Piece Odyssey. They've got the framework of how big a world they can generate for the Switch. But something that we're not talking about is the fact that there should have been a Switch 2 announcement, but for some reason, rumors outlets have said that it was being delayed. If the graphics are supposed to rival that of the PS5, Pokemon Works could technically drop something for the Switch 2 that is just gonna blow people's socks off because of how ambitious of a project it would be.
If that happens, I'm gonna take a picture of my socks on the wall and be like, this this new gameplay trailer blew my socks off. I'll be great, honestly. That'll be a funny thing to post too. Look at them, they're plastered on the wall. No, it's not because of there.
See the cracks. See the cracks on the plaster. Smoke coming out of them. But again, like I said, there's a lot of untapped potential here. And I mean, I know people will turn around and say, well, no, because Pokemon is too tight-fisted on their IP. There's only so long that they can maintain that level of control. And the fact that they're starting to really get a ton of criticism about the fact that they're just kind of regurgitating the same thing over and over and over. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I go for a franchise, I am looking for a very specific feel to my franchises. It's one of the things that kind of turns me off of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So you keep the core franchise the same. However, branching out into a different style of game, utilizing a company that has the history of producing these different styles of games, but being true to your IP, I think that is a smart move because it will allow them to create something that would not only honor the IP the way it should be, but allow different venues for other types of players. Not everybody likes Pokemon because of how grindy it can. Some people like playing games for story. Some people like playing games for action. Giving a company that has a history of building these types of games a chance to take your IP in a new direction is actually wise. And for as much hate as ILCA has gotten over BDSP, I think their library as a whole speaks for itself when it comes down to they still have a lot more experience in different types of games.
Yeah, like now that you mentioned Final Fantasy 2 though, like I'm thinking, what if we get a Final Fantasy Pokemon? Like just the way, like let's take it to like original Final Fantasy, like the gameplay mechanics where it is a turn-based system, which Pokemon already is, but you have an RPG, you have that other like Final Fantasy RPG element to it, I think it'd be pretty spicy.
that true JRPG feel that I had mentioned earlier.
Yeah. 3-person party. Come on, 3-person Pokemon team per battle. Come on, let's go. Come on.
3, man. I used to play Final Fantasy when they had 5 people on screen.
Woo! I remember those days. Oh, I don't remember those days, but I remember that game. The oldest one I played was 6. So.
Oh, dude, I played the original one.
Cool, man. Change all your job classes.
Unfortunately, Chase had to bail out towards the end of this recording. The man's out there saving lives, so can't fault him for having a dip. I'm sure that he would have probably said similar aspects to me, and probably come up with some even better ideas. But that being said, brings this episode to a close. What are your thoughts about our speculations on what potentially could be the future of Pokemon? What are your thoughts about ILCA knowing their library is so vast and such, they've gotten such quality games in the past? Let us know down below. But also be sure to share, like, and subscribe. And come check out our Discord. And as always, have a wonderful day. Bye.
Sorobada. Keep. I think I said that right.
God, I hope so.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Someone fire this man and get a new host.
No. I understand. He's doing this on purpose because we know that he knows that we know that he's a Nintendo.
I'm not the ball.
Yeah, he's probably the CEO of Pokémon Works. That was a good catch. I didn't even think of that. Draco, the master Nintendo ninja.